From the News Channel 5 Network, this is OpenLine.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to OpenLine. I am Ben Hall. Good show tonight. We are talking about our tax dollars. There's a report that comes out every year, the Pork Report, and it identifies government waste in Tennessee. They've done this for the last 10 years. It is always very interesting reading, and tonight we want to delve into it. We want to see what has been listed, what is put on this list as examples of government waste. And we also want to hear from you. What do you think? Do you think it should be on the list? Do you think that's a responsible way to spend money? And are there some other things you think should be on the list? We want to hear from you, so of course there you can call us. But happy to have with us Mark Cunningham from the Beacon Center of Tennessee. Mark, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. So we're just going to go through this stuff. Here it is, Pork Report 2015 from the Beacon Center. And a lot of things in here, but let's give an overview. What is the purpose of this document?
Sure. So, I mean, the reason that we do the Pork Report in the first place is to kind of expose the government waste that's out there to people who might not have time to look at this on a daily basis, right? I mean, a lot of families they got to worry about feeding their kids, they have to worry about taking them to soccer practice, and they're not going to be looking at the comptroller's reports or Watchdog or even watching necessarily the local news. So we kind of, once a year, we give them everything that we consider to be waste that was spent in Tennessee to show them how their tax dollars are being spent. 'Cause, I mean, these families are working really hard for this money, which is part of the reason they don't maybe know about it, because they're working so hard they can't keep track of this the way we'd want them to. So it's kind of a once a year thing that we do, and we make sure that we send it out to people and that we blast, and we get a lot of news coverage around the state for it. So it's just a way for them to see how their money's being spent, and in this case, how irresponsibly their money's being spent.
Generally speaking, how would you say we are in Tennessee? And how would you say it's gone over the last 10 years? Are we getting better, worse? But generally speaking, how are we in Tennessee?
So it's probably not as bad as it is in some other states, I will say that. But the problem is what you mentioned. The trend is going the wrong way. This is the most pork we've ever seen. We've been doing this. This is the 10-year anniversary of the Pork Report. So this year it was $763 million of pork. And ultimately, each year, the past 3 or 4 years, it's been going higher and higher. And this is a problem. I mean, like we said, just because we're not as bad as maybe some other states that waste even more money, I mean, we're thought of as this fiscally conservative, responsible state. And ultimately, this report shows that we have still a lot of work to do.
Why do you think it is going up year after year? What do you think is pushing that trend?
I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, there's special interests who are trying to get that money. I mean, we're talking about a big, which we're going to talk about later, I'm sure, but a big portion of this is corporate welfare. So these are big businesses coming into Tennessee and demanding that the Tennessee government give them money to come in there. So where there's money to be spent, I mean, people are going to spend it. And ultimately, we just need to hold them accountable. And hopefully, one day we won't have to do this report. I mean, that's our goal. We want to get rid of this report completely. But for now, it's getting worse and worse. And we kind of put it on ourselves to be the watchdog to show the people of Tennessee where their money is being spent.
So some things, I guess, are you getting pushback on some of these? I mean, you are sitting here and identifying pork. You are saying that this state, lawmakers, they voted to do this, and they shouldn't have done it because it's pork. Certainly when it was voted on, that's not how it was presented, that this is pork. So how much pushback do you get when you put something out like this that really labels this as, well, that was not needed?
Sure. Well, I mean, and a good point to what you said is a lot of stuff isn't voted on, and that's the problem. It's a lot of unelected bureaucrats who are giving out money, or, I mean, just the governor saying, oh, we're going to give this money to VW in Chattanooga or whatever that is. But I think to your point, everyone hates pork unless it's their pork. So if an individual business is benefiting from that, they're going to push back from us. I mean, even people who support us, our mission generally say, well, I don't think this is pork because I benefit from it personally. So we see a lot of that, and then some people kind of look and say, well, especially in the terms of corporate welfare, that we think it's an investment that we're giving these companies money because they're creating jobs. I mean, what they don't realize is that basically we're paying their salaries instead of the company, while the company CEOs and executives get rich off our taxpayer money. So ultimately, I mean, there is some people who argue with this, but a lot of them seem to be personal interests, where they say, oh, I am against pork generally, but this one instance I don't think it's pork because it helps me.
You identify the top example of pork. And I want to get into that. Well, I'll spoil it. It's the state logo. That was your #1 example, which was not the most expensive, but boy, that got a lot of media attention. And it was an example where Tennessee just changed its logo. It used to be the 3 stars flag. Now it's just TN.
Yes.
And we'll get into that. So that is not as expensive as what I want to ask as far as the largest example. You said it was, what was it, Volkswagen?
It was a taxpayer handout to Volkswagen of $165 million.
$165 million.
Mm-hmm. And that's just from the state. There's another, I think, 70 or 80 million from Chattanooga.
And what else as far as corporate welfare? So that's an example of here's a company, and I'm sure the argument would be we need to pay the company so they don't go to another state. If we don't give them money, then they'll go to Georgia or South Carolina or somewhere else. What are some other examples of corporate welfare? Well,
I mean, there's two pretty big examples also in Memphis. You had the IKEA store, which I think it was about $9.5 million from Memphis taxpayers. And I think we know that Memphis might not be in the best shape financially. So for them to just give $9.5 million of taxpayer money to this company. And it was interesting, actually, in this example, the local firefighters sent IKEA a letter and urged them not to take this handout because basically the average job would be about $54,000 at IKEA, which is something around 30% more than the average Memphis firefighter makes. And that's ultimately these firefighters who are working for low wages to help the city are having to give their taxpayer money to IKEA, a store that, I mean, should survive on its own. And Memphis is a great location. There's, I mean, over 600,000 people live in the city. It's a very diverse place. I mean, there's a place where, I mean, IKEA makes sense there. But the issue is, it probably makes sense without taxpayer money. So, I mean, we don't believe that should be spent there. And the other example,
IKEA, it was $9.5 million in tax breaks, and then it says here that amounts to more than $54,000 per job.
Yes.
And so that's where you have the firefighters coming in and saying, wait, that's more than we make.
We make, yeah. And these are people who are, I mean, I think we all agree that firefighters are a core necessity. I mean, that's something that government should provide for, and they're getting paid these low wages, and instead we're giving our money to IKEA, where it's a private company, and they're paying their workers more than they're making with their money, which is even crazier.
Now, again, the other side would be if we don't give them and I'm sure someone in Memphis would say, if we don't give them $9.5 million in tax breaks, then they go somewhere else. They go to Arkansas. They don't come to our city, and we don't get to benefit from them being here.
Sure, and I think the idea is that the government's role to give private industries money to kind of pay these, I mean, fat cat CEOs and executives to go there. And we have to think about it when we are creating jobs. That's what they say we're doing. I mean, ultimately, they're jobs that we're paying for. So we're the ones who are paying these people's salaries, essentially. And IKEA, I mean, like we said, Memphis is a big city. It's a nice city. It's a place where they would want to relocate anyway. So if they were to go to Arkansas, if they say, okay, you know what, we're going to go to Arkansas, and we say, that's fine, you can go there. You can get that taxpayer money, and Arkansas is then going to have to pay that. And our goal is, I mean, we're a Tennessee-focused think tank. So we don't want our government to give any money to private companies. That's not the job when low and middle class people of the state have to pay for these jobs that they're not getting, that somebody else is taking from them. So we don't believe that middle-class people and low-income people who can't have a hard time making ends meet again, they should pay for these companies to come here and support these CEOs and executives.
Bass Pro Shop. This was also in Memphis.
Yeah.
What about that one?
That's a horrible example. That one's maybe twice as bad as IKEA if you look at kind of how it went. But they said, okay, listen, we're going to move to Memphis if you give us $30 million of taxpayer dollars. So Memphis said, okay, we'll do it. They voted on it. They said, the city council said, well, we're going to give you the $30 million. So about 2 years after they were supposed to open up, they said, we need another $18 million from you guys to open up. So, I mean, they almost extorted the city of Memphis to open up this shop. So all in all, it cost them $48 million to put this Bass Pro Shops in this pyramid, which, I mean, has been used for years for a number of different things. I mean, among them, Memphis used to play basketball there. So they already had this building. They said, we're going to give you this building, we're going to let you move in, and we're going to give you $48 million on top of it. And other than the Memphis taxpayers paying all these dollars for this, it's also causing crazy amounts of traffic in the Memphis area. I mean, they said that in addition to basically Memphis is funding a traffic problem, which I mean, obviously in Nashville we know what traffic problems are like as well, but Memphis is literally giving their taxpayer money for more traffic.
So that's one that you think is really off the chart.
Yes, I mean, I think that one is really bad, especially considering they asked for a certain amount and then they extorted even more out of it, which is a problem with welfare, with this corporate welfare in general. I mean, you see even when we talk about the TV show, I mean, we give Nashville $8 million a year for a TV show, and they say, well, you know what, you're going to give us more money next year, we're going to leave. I mean, it is literally like mob-like taxes saying, you better give us more, we're going to go somewhere else. And that's what these corporations can do too. I mean, we gave VW a lot of money to go to Chattanooga, and then last year they turned around and said, well, we'll expand the plant, but you have to give us another $165 million. And that taxpayers shouldn't be held hostage by corporations.
Is that a dream world, though, or is that, do you think we can really live that way, or in the world in which we live, that's just the way it is now? We just, as governments, they just have to give money out. Or do you think, you know of another state that isn't doing it, that's taken a hard line like, you know what, we're not playing?
I mean, there's states that have given less than Tennessee has. I mean, I don't know offhand if there's any states that say, no, we're not doing corporate welfare. And to answer your question, right now, maybe it's not a reality, but we think as we inform Tennessee citizens of what's going on, that they're not going to be happy about this. Because a lot of these deals are kind of swept under the rug. They're not something that necessarily the government wants to brag about. And I mean, the people that benefit from them are the people who have a lot of money and people who are going to be benefactors of political campaigns, things like that. So ultimately, it is something that we believe we can get rid of, and that's one of the missions of Beacon in the coming years, that we are going to try to expose corporate welfare for what it is, which is a taxpayer handout to big business.
All right, we are going to take a break. We have several calls. Look at that.
Great.
Several calls. Several lines open, though, if you want to call 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. We'll take a break, and then we'll start taking some phone calls. See what you think about all of this. Be back right after this.